Hi guys, welcome back to Casting Commons, the show where we discuss everything Pauper. I am your host Teasdale, and this is my co-host, the man that glitters himself, Reese.
Hello.
Tell you, these names are getting better and better. What have you been up to this week, pal?
I've actually played a bit of Pauper this week, which is a bonus. I've been running leagues with Medvedev's Monored one drop list. Yeah, it's really strong. It's a really strong list. The leagues are stupidly terror heavy, or the leagues that I've been playing are stupidly terror heavy. I guess it might wax and wane, maybe like what time you play. But I think out of 4 leagues, the least terror I faced was 2, and then the most was 4.
Jeez.
I think I had a 4, a 3, a 3, and a 2.
Jesus.
Which is a lot of terror.
Yeah, I think the most I've had is 3, which was when I played terror myself. So, but yeah, I think I've standard easily 2. I'd say it's at least, most of my experience is it's 1 red at least, 1 terror, 1 Ponza, 1 of the previous mentioned at least, and then 1 random deck, which can also include the other 3 again.
Yeah. But yeah, it's still fun. Terror's not as big of a boogeyman as I guess Kuldotha was, but it is starting to get there.
I think the main thing is it feels like you still get to play. Like, regardless of, obviously, they're still putting 5/5s out by, like, turn 3 or whatever. The game probably doesn't end till 6, 7, 8 turns, maybe. So you feel like you're actually playing Magic.
I think your hate cards have a lot more agency as well. Like, if you just Tormod's Crypt, you give yourself an extra 2 turns, which if you play aggro deck, it's pretty big. Or if you're playing Control and you get Relic online on turn 1, you can slow them down to, like, get yourself established before you start getting 5/5s jammed against you.
Yeah. Definitely.
But yeah, that's what I've been doing anyway. What about yourself?
Yeah, I'm just continuing the grind of been doing, obviously, Deck Doctor a week. Still fun, still enjoying that. Ran a couple of leagues again, one with Terra, one with Jeskai Affinity, which was obviously put up on Friday. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Still trying out random piles. Yeah, going well. We've got a Paper Pauper event this weekend. We've got 2. We've got obviously F&M and Saturday event. Yeah, so which I'm looking forward to. Get back into the groove of a bit of Paper Magic. It's been a while.
Playing something spicy, I hope.
Always playing something spicy.
New Commander Masters cards are legal, so
yeah,
there's plenty to pick from.
Yeah. So should we move on to a little bit of news?
Yeah.
So, Commander Masters spoilers. We're finally here. We went from literally the way the weeks worked out. We went from basically 0 spoilers to here's the whole set.
Yeah.
Got a lot of downshifts, a lot of powerful downshifts as well. I guess I'll just touch on some of those. So I'll name the white ones to start with. So there's Generous Gift, All That Glitters, and Mersmith, which, for those that don't know, Generous Gift is a beast within, a white beast within. It's 2 and a white, destroy target permanent. The controller gets a white elephant, and it's an instant. Mersmith is a 2 mana, I want to say 2/1. And whenever you cast an artifact spell, you may pay 1. If you do, create a 1/1 artifact mirror. And All That Glitters is a 1 and a white enchantment that gives the enchanted creature +1 swarm for each artifact and/or enchantment that you have on the battlefield. So basically, in Bogles, it's an Ethereal Armor 5 through 8 that costs 2. But it's also an Ethereal Armor for artifact decks, like the likes of Affinity,
which is the big thing.
Yeah. So they're the white cards. What's next to note, I guess, the blue card, there's a Cryptic Serpent, which is another big one, which is 5 and 2 blue.
Yeah, it's 5 blue for a 5/6 that costs 1 less for each instant or sorcery in your graveyard.
Yeah, is it a 5/6 or is it 6/5? It's one way around, but yeah.
But it's essentially Terra's 5 through 8.
Yes.
If you don't want to play Gurmag Angler.
Or if you're not playing Gurmag Angler colours.
Yeah. If you're playing mono blue or blue red, as we'll see. That's a pretty big one as well.
Yeah. We've got 2 red cards, which are pretty cool. There's Sulphurous Blast, which is 2 red instant, and it deals, I think it deals 2 damage to each creature and each player, but it deals 3 if you've cast it in your main phase.
Yeah.
So effectively, it's one of the first, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, the first 3 damage, like Wrath effect that we've had in Pauper.
Yeah, probably. To be fair, for red, it doesn't even have many. Does it have any 2 damage Wrath effects at the moment? It
But
doesn't have many. Like Pyroclasm and stuff like that's not
yeah,
operating.
you've obviously got Cannonade and
Yeah,
the other Cannonade, Dragon's
the
Breath Weapon, and that's basically it.
So,
So
but yeah, it's a higher damage Wrath effect
yeah,
basically in red.
which we have had access to, which is in terms of Swell and Sandstorm, but obviously that takes a
Yeah.
lot of work to obviously trigger. It doesn't hit flyers, and also if you're playing big guys yourself, it kills them. Where you now have access to Cryptic Serpent and Terror, and you can play Sulphurous Blast and not kill your guys.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty interesting one. The other one is Spike Bellows, which, as weird as it sounds, is not the most powerful card in the world, but it's the card I'm hyped for the most. And the only reason is because I genuinely felt like it should have been a common in the first place. I look at it, I'm like, why can't I do this one? I can do everyone else, but not this one. So, for those that don't know, I don't actually know its actual mana cost either. I think it's like 6 in a red. It might be 4.
It's quite high.
Yeah.
I think it's 6 in a red or something like
It's-
that. Or
it's-
4 in a red.
Yeah, it's like a 5 or between 5 and 7 mana for, I think it's like a 4/1 or something. It's like quite weak statted, and it's 1 red evoke. When it enters the battlefield, deal 6 damage to target creature. So obviously with Ephemerate, like people have seen with the Muldrifter effects, you can just flicker it and basically deal 6 to 2 things, which is pretty strong. Using your Ephemerates as removal
It's
spells.
when it leaves the battlefield.
Oh, when it leaves the battlefield.
But yeah,
So,
it's
sorry,
5 in
yeah.
a red, 6/1 with a 3 mana evoke. When it leaves, deals 6 damage to target creature.
So it's not as good
So
as
yeah,
but yeah,
it's like the red Muldrift or red Mormog type thing. You can
Yeah.
evoke it in, ephemerate it out, blow up their guy, and then ephemerate it again in next turn and kill another guy. Or if they block it or remove it in response to the ephemerate, it kills the guy anyway.
Yeah. So it's a pretty cool one. And then finally, I think finally, anyways, the last one I have to note is Drowning Sorrow, which is another Wrath effect, which is all creatures get -2/-2 for 1 black, and I believe you scry 2 as well.
Scribe 1, I think.
Scry 1, yeah. So again, big downshifts. To be fair, all of them have the potential to see play.
Yeah, definitely. I think all the glitters is the standout for me, with then Cryptic Serpent and Sulphurous Blast being big ones. But yeah, a lot of stuff that could see play.
Definitely.
And in some form, and I imagine will alter the format in some fashion, if not quite a bit.
Yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much it that I want to cover for downshifts and also news, I guess, unless there's anything else that you want to touch on.
Yeah, no, that's fine for me. I think that's a good place to leave it.
So we'll go on to the Saturday challenge, which is the 22nd of July.
Yeah, it was a pretty cool challenge, to be fair. A lot of terror, as we have been seeing, but so first place was a blue-red terror, a bit different to the blue-black that we used to. Second place was mono blue Fae coming back. Third and fourth was Flickertron and a blue-black terror. And then 5th through 8th was Jeskai Ephemerate, another blue-black terror, Mogwarts with the Troll Exhume package and Affinity. And then 9th through 10th, there was Pingerburn, again mono red, just not quite getting there, but still hovering around the top 10. And what I've called the blue-black Ninja Terror. From Weber. Basically, the mono blue Fae shell with black and terror in.
Yeah, it's like a hybrid in it by the looks of it. Like its numbers are definitely all over the spot. We've obviously got like 2 Fairy Seer and stuff like that, and then like 1 Preordain and just random numbers throughout the whole thing, for sure. But I guess it just shows the power level of either A, Terror, or B, Snuff Out. I'll let you just make
or both.
Or both.
But yeah, obviously another pretty dominant weekend for Terror.
Yeah.
The blue-red version, I guess, is the biggest standout. It's a pretty interesting one. It essentially leverages Skred as the removal instead of Snuff Out, which in sort of mirror matches is pretty good because you can kill Gurmag anglers with Scred.
Yeah.
And obviously Terrors as well, but Gurmag being the main one. And you gain the ability to play cards like Commodore, Crimson Fleet Commodore to get the Monarch as well. As well as just like good removal like Lightning Bolt. Still playing 4 Lorians, but slightly higher land count. It's on 18 lands. Yeah, a pretty interesting one, pretty interesting development. Something that I think will probably get tuned more when Serpent comes out from Commander Masters.
100%. I think the thing that I do like about this is this sort of like, is it Monarch deck has kind of existed since, I always forget that, Fall from Favor, and it was kind of like, it's sort of petered there and appeared in random shells, like the blue-red Ponza deck that just hoodwinks all your lands is completely glued by this shell of just, I'm going to Scred and Bolt stuff, and I'm going to have a Monarch and all that sort of stuff. And it's great.
Similar with Blue-Red Fair as well, like
exactly.
with the Monarch guy and then just the Scred shell.
Yeah. So it's good to see that they've kind of like adopted a Terror as a win con almost. So it's really good to see. Like, it's like, I kind of look at this and like, it's not really, it doesn't feel terror-y. It kind of feels like blue-red control with Terror as a win con, which is like really nice. It's nice and refreshing. It's not just, here's a bunch of 5/5s on turn 3 and 4. It's, I'm going to bolt, I'm going to do this. It's kind of like replacing Serpentine Curve with Terror in like a blue-red deck.
Yeah, obviously he's a lot more control. He doesn't run like he doesn't run 4 Thought Skulls, it only runs 2, and it doesn't run any of the other thoughts, mental note. It doesn't run any mental notes. So it's a lot more just, I'm going to cast my spells and eventually cast a cheap Terror and keep up counterspell type thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a cool take. Mono Blue Fate coming back. We've not seen it in quite a while. From what I remember, it was a fairly stock-looking list. I think it had 2 mutagenics, if I just find it on here.
2 Force Spikes.
No, 4 mutagenics, 2 Force Spikes, sorry, yeah. Got the Brian Barrows in, not the Golem list. Fairly, stock mono blue list as we have expected. Still stacks of blasts and stacks of annuls in the sideboard. Only 3 relics, which seems a bit bold with all the terror, but did get there. A very blue dominated top 8 overall. There was basically the Mogwarts that was the only deck that wasn't playing blue in the top 8, and then all the decks were playing blue had like paired with red or black basically, except the mono blue, which was just blue.
Yeah, it's definitely a blue heavy meta at the moment, to be fair, and it is nice to see in a way, because it has been a while where obviously the only blue we've really seen dominate this much is obviously when mono blue fair was at its absolute term. We've kind of nicely mixed with a lot, but it is clearly the standout colour.
Yeah,
clearly.
I think we're lacking a bit of green. We haven't seen much green for a while. There's the occasional wall sneaks in there, but after now Ponza's been sort of stamped down, it's we are lacking a bit. But yeah, it's not too bad. Obviously, it's very terror heavy. But yeah, it could be worse, I guess.
You've got 1 weather in the Tron list.
In the Flickertron.
Yeah. Just 3 moments, please. What more do you want? That's 4 cards.
But it's also just blue and black.
Yeah, it is.
And red.
So, but yeah, definitely a nice top 8, to be fair. As much as it's dominated by terror, you do get a new kind of spin on terror, so that makes it feel a bit more refreshing. You get RC Clintz again, or R-Clintz on Flickertron appearing again. You get the standard one of Jeskai Ephemerate in there. And then the off-the-wall Mogwarts is also nice to see, and it's nice. I really do like this Troll Exhumed version of it, and I think it will start to become a staple.
Yeah. I think it's sort of just touching on what we mentioned last week and the week before, really, that combo at the moment is still quite powerful.
Yeah.
Again, most weeks there's 1 or 2 combo decks in the top 8. You have to be very good with them. You have to be a good pilot. But yeah, you can definitely get there with a combo deck in Pauper at the moment.
Definitely. Would you like to move on to the deep dive, I guess?
Yeah. So this was my pick. It was Heisen's 23rd place deck, which again I've called Red Black Mid Range. I'm I'm not really sure if there's a better name for it. It's sort of a reanimator deck with 4 trolls and 2 Oliphants and 4 Exhumes, but it's also just like Thorn of the Black Rose, Chain's Edict, Crimson Fleet Commodore, like mid range grindy, I guess. Stacks of removal with Lightning Bolt, Snuff Outs, 4 Chain's Edicts, 4 Cast Downs, 2 Suffocating Fumes. So yeah, essentially either looking to turn one a troll or a Oliphant, or turn two, sorry, a troll or a Oliphant, or just grind you out with removal, resolve a Thorn, and then crush you with Thorn or Commodore, I guess, and then crush you with card advantage.
It's a nice take. Obviously, I do like the fact you can surprise people with your very slim chance of turn one, exhume, troll.
Oh, with the four dark roots.
With the 4 dark roots,
yeah.
But obviously, there's only 5 swamps in the deck to actually allow that. Really, the good thing that I do like about this deck is it's almost like I feel like you have to. You're forced into running an amount of bogs and amount of spell bombs in the deck because of the way Exhume works, and obviously your deck is basically I'm going to kill everything on side. And it's nice at the moment that it doesn't feel so bad because Terra's everywhere. So you don't feel as bad running 2 spell bombs, 3 bogs. Like that's fine.
Yeah, obviously, if you don't get the early Exhume, it can be a bit of a liability. But yeah, like you say, you are getting essentially free value off playing Bojuka Bog and Natal Spellbomb in the main because you're gonna verse Terra at some point, if not multiple times. So you've essentially just pre-sideboarded against that matchup. But yeah, I would like to see this deck develop a bit. Obviously, it still looks a bit rough with the numbers now. Like I guess they maybe are set, but to me they look a bit rough. There's a lot of 2s and 3s. But yeah, it would be cool to see if he sticks with this and develops this a bit more.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting one. Like I could easily see Skred making a way into this list instead of like the Lightning Bolts as well. That's because the geothermal bogs can easily be the snow covered lands, the basics as well. The other thing I think you touched on obviously in the notes is about Chainers, and I do agree. Like Chainers looks super odd here, running 3 bolts, 3 snuff outs, and then 4 Chainers. It's like it's only really good against Terra, and even at best, it's not even amazing against Terra. Like Terra players have adapted to be able to play around Chainers well.
Yeah, I think unfortunately as well, the rest of the meta, like Chainers, just isn't very good against.
No.
Like you get the occasional Mogwart till turn 1 troll you and you can like Chainers it, but then the rest of the deck Chainers is just dead against.
Yeah.
Same with like Mono Red, they're playing loads of guys again, so Chainers just isn't that good.
Definitely.
It does seem like a bit of a concession to Terra, but I don't know if you could have just ran an extra Snuff Out, an extra Lightning Bolt, and some more spell bombs in the main to make that concession anyway.
Yeah, but like
and then at least you can cycle it.
Even to the sense of that, like your main deck to me already looks like it's well positioned against Terra. Yeah. Like you've got 3 Thorns which they just can't kill. It's so hard for them to kill. Game 1, you've got 4 Trolls,
and they can't attack through it.
And they can't. So it will trade with a 5/5 pretty much.
Yeah.
You've got Trolls which are obviously hard to kill, hard for them to even block. To be honest, you've got Gurmag Angler, which is the exact same. You've got main deck spell bombs and bogs, and 4 cast downs along with that as well. Just seems it's kind of like the starting point. If I'm going to build a black deck, 4 cast down, 4 Chainers. Right, what's next? Is kind of the thing, and I think that's kind of where I think Chainers just isn't that good at the moment. It's a bit awkward.
I think especially outside of Mono Black, when you have access to Lightning Bolts and maybe Skreds, like you say as well, it's just not really needed.
Even in effect, you could technically probably make the mana base work with Defile to an extent as well.
Yeah.
In theory. I
guess the Carnariums and the Bogs are a bit awkward, but yeah, I can see that.
But again, yeah, I do think it'd be nice to see this deck sort of develop. It's a pretty cool one.
Yeah, sideboard, just to go over it, it looks to me like a very sort of I'm testing this deck out. I want what's good against blue, and I want what's good against artifacts
Yeah.
and graveyards. So the sideboard's 6 red blasts, 4 Casting the Fire and 2 Gorilla Shaman for affinity, 2 more Nihil spell bombs, and then just a Miser's Unexpected Fangs to go with the 2 that are already in the main. It again looks like a very rough sideboard, but I like the idea, and I like the idea of the list in general. I think there's probably a lot of potential in it, and it'll be cool to see it develop.
I do like the idea of these sort of decks with the fangs kind of approach. Is basically similar, obviously, to Terra. I have so many big bombs. One of them will resolve, and one will get a fangs on, and that's kind of like how I'm hoping to carry this red matchup. And it'll work sometimes. Sometimes it will. Sometimes it won't. But
yeah, I think especially if you get a turn 2 Troll or Oliphant and then just fangs it, you probably just turn 3 win against mono red.
Yeah.
But yeah, anything else from you? Or do you want to move on to Sunday?
Definitely a sweet one, and I definitely would have picked that deck if I was in charge of Saturday too. It is a sweet one.
I'm glad you agreed with the choice. So yeah, Sunday the 23rd. Again, another probably less interesting than the Saturday, but still fairly decent challenge. First place was Blue White Gates. Second place was Jeskai Ephemerate. Third and fourth was a Blue Black Terror and an Affinity. 5th through 8th, there was a White Weenie, a Blue Red Terror again, a Blue Black Terror, and a Kuldoffer Red. And then the near misses, 9th was Green Black Gardens, which was Michael Bonda, and Mono Red 1-drops, which I believe was Medvedev again. But I am not 100% on that.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, a pretty solid weekend again for Control. Blue White Gates and Jeskai FM taking the 2 top spots is quite a good showing for Control in Pauper at the moment. Obviously still dominated by Terra with 3 Terra decks in the top 8. But yeah, they are alongside the other decks that you would assume would top 8, like Affinity, like Kuldoffer Red. So it is sort of still a shift in meta, but just there's a lot more Terra than the other decks at the moment.
Yeah, Terra's definitely the top dog, and it's definitely staying here for, it's a weird one, because if I was to get a list of the top decks 2-3 weeks ago when Terra first had its breakout kind of weekend, I would basically just say, well, if we were to choose a deck that we wouldn't appear in the week after, I probably would have put money on Terra, because it's the easiest one to, in theory, hate out.
Yeah.
But it just shows either the power level of Lorien, the power level of Terra in general, and how much it can just work around hate.
Yeah, I think really it is the consistency that Lorien has just given the deck. Like, it's huge. It went from being that sort of inconsistent. If you run lucky, you're gonna smash with Terra. If you get a bit unlucky, you're gonna struggle. To just, this is just a really solid, consistent deck.
Yeah.
If you can play it well, you're gonna do well.
Yeah.
White Weenie making an appearance again. It's always good to see White Weenie do well. I don't think it was a particularly different list to what we used to, but it's just nice to see a non-mono red aggro deck there, basically.
It's a nice one.
It was running Sunlance in the sideboard, which I'm assuming is a concession to Swift Spear, maybe.
Yeah.
If the turn 1 Swift Spear, you can Sunlance it. On your turn 1. Apart from that, it seems fairly stock White Weenie.
No, yeah, it looks pretty normal. Pretty happy to see. Obviously, the 4 strands in the 75 is always a good carry for those sort of decks. Good against Terror as well, which is quite nice.
Yeah.
Nice to see. It is. I think it's pretty well positioned. To be fair, I would think it is. Anyways, it's appearing. I'd say at least once a weekend.
Appeared twice. It does seem that way in the past few weeks, definitely. Probably the past 3 or 4 weeks, we've seen at least one copy of White Weenie in one of the challenges, which is good. Obviously, it's a very accessible deck and a very easy deck to pick up. There's obviously lines that are a lot more complex, but it's a good starting point really for anyone wanting to get into Pauper as well. So it's good that it is doing well.
Yeah.
The Green Black Gardens in 9th. Are you not mentioning that yet? Have you gone off Gardens?
Gardens is it's gone past me. Like it's evolved into something that is not me. Yeah. Yeah. Again. It looks like a fine guy. It looks similar to the Gardens list that we had last week, I think, with the Thorns and obviously some amount of Visionaries into Avenging Hunter with the Miser Fangren Marauder, and then a selection of removal spells, which most of them seem to be off Spin and Darkness, as it seems.
It's sort of what I would call a fairly stock Gardens list from what it seems to have developed into, I guess.
Yeah. It's just
or a stock Avenging Hunter version of a Gardens list, I guess.
Yeah. It's just so interesting to me how different opinions, like there's so many big, I want to say big names, but there's bigger grinders that pick up this deck a lot, and they have so different opinions, like on completely different lists, and it's like, I don't even want to get in the middle of this. I don't even want to look at these lists. I'm done. Like, use all Rock Your Avenging Hunters, use all Kill with Vampire Sovereign, leave me alone. I'm playing Jeskai Affinity. So it's nice to see. And it's nice to see that mid-rangey control decks can obviously do well and pick it up. The blue-red Terror list, blue-red Terror list or blue-red Control, whatever you want to call it, obviously featured again. Same list by the looks of it.
Was it the same pilot?
I don't believe so, but I could be wrong.
I can't even find the list now.
So, Poker's Wizard was the 4th place list on the Sunday. And then we had...
Yeah, so it's a different pilot.
Yeah.
But yeah, the list looks very similar. I don't know, obviously the guys maybe work together or not, but yeah, it's a very, very cool list. It's cool to see it sort of change up the norm of Terror.
Yeah, definitely. I
think it's actually exactly the same, the list. Yeah, it is.
So the Jeskai list was on Lorien Revealed as well, the Jeskai Ephemerate list. And on Scred, which is always nice. I think that's at that point it's a staple. Unless you're Heisen, you're basically running 4 Screds.
Yeah, I think basically people have seen how good Scred is in the current meta, and it just doesn't really make sense to move off that now. With how good it is in the Terror matchup. It just makes sense. Like I say, I think more decks will go towards Scred. And like we were saying about that red-black list, or we could put Scred in, it sort of is a very premium removal spell at the moment. It scales up pretty high, and a lot of pauper cards don't really scale to the same effect Scred does, especially for 1 mana.
Definitely.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's nice to see. I would put Scred and Journey up there as like the premium non-snuff out removal spells for sure. And they're definitely, and I guess that's just to be fair. I think it's probably how well they both line up against Terror generally. Obviously, one's cheap enough you can pay the two, and one, I don't want to say avoids the two, but it avoids the other one from once it's resolved. If you know what I mean, like the whole counter it once they pay the ward trick that obviously people do when playing Terror. You kind of avoid that with Journey, and obviously Dawnbringer's on like a downtrend. Which might be actually the success of White Weenie, I guess, with the 4 journeys. All you need.
Yeah, it gives it an outlet to that Terror matchup. Obviously, you can go pretty wide around Terror, and as long as they don't really have a Fangs going, you can essentially chump it for days as you smack them back.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. It's a nice topic because as well, like the lists in the Sunday are very different to the Saturday, apart from obviously the Terror. So it's nice, obviously, to see those different decks that also are well positioned do well. So it's nice. Pretty good. Happy enough here.
Yeah, move on to your deep dive.
So the deep dive for Sundays, I think it was the 22nd place deck by Grantfly, which is, I'm going to call it Black White Ephemerate for the lack of a better name. Because it's black and it's white and it has 2 copies of Ephemerate. So this list is 22nd place by Grantfly, Black White Ephemerate, as said, and it runs 1 Spell Bomb, 2 Blood Fountains, 4 Chitin Rats, which is a weird choice for Black White Ephemerate. 2 Core Skyfisher, 4 Thraben Inspectors, and then 1 Thorn, 1 Dawnmarine Cleric, 1 Vampire Spawn, 4 Spirited Companions, 2 Inspiring Overseers, 2 Goliath Paladins, 1 Eagles of the North, which is the white plane cycler, for those that don't know.
From Lord of the Rings.
From Lord of the Rings. And 2 Troll of Khazad-dûm, which is obviously the black swamp cycler, which we've touched on for many weeks now. Instance, we have 1 Snuff Out, 4 Cast Down, 2 Ephemerate, 1 Suffocating Fumes, 1 Deadly Dispute, and 4 Chainer's Edict. And then we've basically got 20 basic lands in some capacity, 1 Campus, 4 white-black land that you can search for with Troll or Eagle, 1 Bog, 1 Crossroads, 6 Swamps, 2 Plains, 2 Basilicas, and 2 Ancient Dens.
Yeah, there's some very odd numbers going on in this list. My first thought was it's a lot of creatures for like a black-white mid-rangey list that we're used to seeing. Obviously, the Ephemerates sort of make sense, but again, only playing 2 seems pretty low. But compared to obviously we haven't seen any in a while, but like the black-white mid-rangey decks usually run a lot of removal. Again, this doesn't really run that much removal. It's an interesting one. It's a very interesting one.
Yeah, again, you've got... It's the standard, I am building a black mid-range deck. What do I want? 4 Cast Downs, 4 Chainers. Right, what's the rest of the deck doing?
Yeah.
Like... It's definitely got interesting card choices. I'd say the 1 Deadly Dispute to me just makes absolutely 0 sense. Like, you've kind of you've thought about it in your mana base. You're like, oh, there's 2 Ancient Dens there. Let's consider this 1 Deadly Dispute.
Yeah.
Sure. 2 Blood Fountains is odd in like a black-white Ephemerate deck as well, but I can kind of get behind that. The Spell Bomb again. I don't really. I guess it's just a nod to Terror. I guess I don't really.
Yeah.
Just want it. To me, this deck looks like it had an Exhuming. I'm looking at this. I'm like, this had an Exhum in its initial list, and we forgot to take the Spell Bomb out. That's how I'm looking at this. But like,
it sort of reminds me of like a Gardensy list where you've got like a Nihil Spellbomb, some Blood Fountains, a Snuff Out, a Suffocating Fumes, a Deadly Dispute, but then you've just got all the numbers of Gardens, reduce them to 1, and then put a load of white creatures in it as well.
Yeah, it's the list number wise is like, I can see the reasoning behind certain cards, like the Vampire Spawn with Ephemerates. You know, obviously, cool, gain some life. It's a 2/3 body. You know, I can get behind that. The 1 Dawnmarine Cleric, obviously, Dawnmarine Cleric's never bad. The 1 Thorn, you know, you gotta have your Outer Monarchs. Then you've just got like 4 Chitin Rats, and it's like, what's Chitin Rats doing in this metagame? Like,
but there's only 2 Ephemerates.
I know, that's what, it's...
so like all those choices that work with Ephemerate, and then you just don't play the Ephemerates.
It's a really strange...
It's a very weird one.
It's a very strange list, but whatever it is, it obviously has worked. The guy came 22nd, or they came 22nd. 20 lands, fine. You know, with 3 cyclers and 2 basilicas, all makes sense. I'm all down for that. Like, I'm very much down for having the right card at the right time. You know, the 1 Snuff Out, they've got to play around it. You know, the Tom Ross special. You've got to play around all these 1-offs all the time. Like, I get it, but also just consistency is just king here. Especially in a metagame where it's sometimes you're going to miss your land drops, you die to Ponza. Sometimes you're going to get mono ready out of this game. Sometimes they're going to cast 3 5/5s on turn 3 or 4. Like, consistency is king here, and I just think it's probably going to be the downside to this deck is not having what you want when you want it.
Yeah. I could say that, just having some random clunky guy and no Ephemerate or an Ephemerate and like Core Skyfisher that you don't want to Ephemerate at all.
Yeah, I'm definitely down for black white making a resurgence. I just don't think this sort of take is it. Like, it just looks too, what's the word? conflicted is probably the word I'd
Yeah,
use.
I think there's something there. Like, there's a lot of cool synergies. Like the Eagles of the North, especially with Ephemerate,
Mm.
is cool. Like when Eagles enters the battlefield, it gives all your creatures +1/+0 and first strike.
Mm.
So you can like combat, you can attack and then like combat trick an Ephemerate to give all you guys +1/+0 and first strike and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But then you've just got one Eagle and two Ephemerates. I think there's something there, like in the black white shell, especially with now the land cyclers. I do think 20 lands, 3 land cyclers, and 2 basilicas is probably too high. But I don't know if that's just we're running 2 Goliath paladins, so we need 5 mana at some point.
Yeah, it just does seem very conflicted. It looks like a mix between black white ephemerate of old with like flashback maraudery, chitin ratsy value, plus your mid rangey black white that you've got with Goliath paladin stuff that we're used to, and then something else that's now new and going on. It's just kind of slapped them all together, and you've kind of got struggling for space.
Yeah, I think if they sort of pointed a bit more where they want to go and like trim it, it does look like a pretty solid idea.
Yeah.
Again, I don't really understand the chitin rats.
Yeah, odd one.
In any of those aspects, it's sort of just not a very good card at the moment. You can get them with Ephemera, but it's a lot of investment to try and get them. And then when everyone's playing Terra, then they just brainstorm the card back or mill it away if they don't want it.
Yeah.
It's not really set up.
No, I just don't think Chitin Rats is a good card generally in 2023. It's just not.
Yeah.
Mana to, power and toughness is not good. Ability is not good. It's just.
Yeah. At least that's 4 easy cuts though.
Yeah, that's one way of it. I guess
I feel like this should be a deck doctor deck. I'm going to submit this to the next deck doctor to see what you turn it into. I think that could be quite interesting.
All right. Is that the take? If anyone else actually wants to submit this deck, because I'm just going to ignore Reese's post, because that's I don't want to get called biased. That's all I'm saying. I have integrity. So just to go around, I guess, just to add even more weirdness and cover it off, the sideboard. So we have 3 Duresses, 2 Dust to Dust, 2 Ice Quakes, 2 Nile Spell Bombs, 1 Lone Missionary, 1 Revoke Existence, 1 Suffocating Fumes, 1 Dawnbringer Cleric, and 2 Arms of Adar to round things off.
Yeah, again, just very, very weird numbers.
Yeah.
Like the cards are all cards that you would expect to see in a sideboard and in a black-white sideboard, but just the numbers are all over the place.
Yeah. I don't really get the Ice Quake. I
guess it's a Tron sort of.
I guess.
Submission, but we're not seeing a huge amount of Tron at the moment online. Obviously, paper's a bit different because all the Tron's very, very much playable and a really good deck in paper. But it does still seem like a nod to Tron, but it probably doesn't need to be there. You could probably just put more Dust to Dust or Evokes or Lone Missionaries in and you'd be fine.
Yeah. And then you've obviously got the 2 Dust to Dust and 1 Revoke. Again, I'd say just numbers are just odd. I would just like to know the reasoning behind it. I guess it's, unless they're just expecting I'm going to draw these at the right time, but there's no real, a massive card draw. Like, you've got 1 Deadly Dispute, so you're just naturally drawing them. So, but the numbers are all off. The deck idea is sweet as out, and I'm down for a black-white ephemerate, black-white mid-range, whatever you want to call it. I just think the numbers definitely need work. But again,
cool to see Eagles scene play as well. That's sort of one of the first few times that we've seen the white version of the Land Cycler scene play. Obviously, we've seen the red, we've seen the black, we've seen the blue, we've seen the green in Ponza. This was the sort of one that hasn't seen that much play, but is still like a solid guy. Obviously, a lot more expensive for the body than the others, which is a shame. Being a 6 mana 3/3, but if you can leverage the ability with Ephemerate, it's probably worth playing, especially as you can just free cycle it for lands. Yeah,
I'm definitely here to see what builds on this. If anyone takes it to change it or whatever, definitely down for it. Sweet one. Do you want to move on to shout-outs?
Yeah, go for it.
So I guess quickly we'll just shout out to Hyson and Weber again. as long as they keep playing and repping top 32s, we will keep shouting them out. It is just great to see, obviously, the Pauper Format panel or the PFP repping in challenges and events, especially with them both playing absolutely wild decks on the Saturday. Both decks both show different brews, different takes on all sorts of different strategies, and it's just nice to see. I would like, especially so close to like Commander Masters as well. Like it's like 2 week, I think, until they're on Magic Online. So it's just, they could have easily just, oh well, I'm free, I'll play the weekend, let's just play Terra, and that's just clearly not the case. They're still just brewing. So it's nice to see.
Are they not legal from this weekend on Magic Online?
I don't think so. Maybe, but I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Because obviously a lot of the cards, well, the cards that we're talking about are already on Magic Online as uncommons or maybe rares in some cases, but so they are available, but I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure when they're actually legal.
Yeah, I think because of this, is it the Premier event that makes them legal this weekend? That in paper doesn't apply to Magic Online because the set actually has to go online.
Oh right, okay.
I think I'm not
very clear, Wizards. Very clear. As usual.
I think I'm not 100% sure, but
yeah.
And I guess finally, obviously, shout out to Medvedev for rocking mono red 1-drops.
Yeah.
Both days featured in both top 8s or top 10s. Sorry.
I
think.
Obviously, yeah. Pulling it out, the deck's really good. Obviously, I've been playing it myself. It's a really solid list. I would recommend anyone try it if you have been playing mono red and enjoying it. It's a really cool take. You lose sort of the card advantage angle, but you gain so much speed. And from my experience, synthesizer functions so much better because you sort of know you're not just going to hit a 2-drop when you've got one land, essentially. Like you can always cast what you hit. It's really good.
So there you go. If anyone doesn't have a soul and wants to play red, here you hear first.
I'll support you.
I jest. But anyways, so that's it for the shoutouts. Would you like to move on to our hot takes from last week?
Yeah. So my first hot take from last week was that the PFP will comment on the state of the leagues or Pauper as a whole. It's not happened yet. It will happen eventually. I am sure they are still there. We can see 2 of them playing Magic Online. But yeah, hopefully they will comment at some point. But yeah, nothing as of yet.
So my next take was that mid range would make a return in kind of full swing. With Ponza looking to take a downward trend. I'd say pretty hard whiff. We got a bit of mid range to say. We got that black white deck. We have a bit of Gardens, and obviously these like kind of mid rangey control decks you've kind of featured as well, like Corgate and stuff like that. But yeah, you're generally not as much as I'd liked.
Yeah, I think the big takeaway from that is it's not sort of mid range, but it is control. Like controls is really back.
Yeah.
And doing well. Not quite mid range, but similar.
Yeah, you Peter on the decks that are that can play a mid range game that are more controlling, like Gardens, like Colgate, like these black white ephemera, these grindy decks that can play a mid range deck.
Yeah.
Mid range game plan, I should say.
My second take from last week was that Swiftspear will not be banned this year. I forgot about that. Yeah, we'll carry that over. It's still here. Especially as Pauper is developing week to week, I think it's getting banned less and less. But yeah, we'll carry that over till the end of the year and see what happens.
Yep, still legal. Still planned it, be illegal. My last take Colgate will end next weekend being on top again. Most top 8s, top 16s, and most represented deck. And it's still here. It definitely is. But it definitely is.
Won.
Took home a win on the Sunday. But Terra's still the deck. Yeah. Terra is still the deck to beat, and it's definitely the most represented deck in top 8, top 16s, all that sort of stuff.
By far as well. Like it's not even close.
Yeah. But it's nice to see that Colgate can still kind of compete with that. So
yeah, if people are willing to play it and are good pilots, you can definitely get there. The deck is really strong.
So hopefully we see more of it, to be fair. I'm a big fan of Basilisk Gate.
Hot takes for next week.
Sure.
My first one is sort of just a continuation that the format panel will comment on the format. Obviously, it's nice to have them comment after each set release or a period of time after each set release. I guess given how close together Lord of the Rings and Commander Masters were, that they've sort of missed that opportunity now. So I imagine they'll wait till see the impact of Commander Masters, but does that then lead into a standard release that has loads of good cards for Bob, and now they're waiting to see the impact of that? I don't know. It would just be, it would be nice to have a comment from them, even if it's just, we have been watching the format, we can see Terra's really OP, but we're just going to wait and see what happens with this Commander Master stuff.
Which is fine.
I would take that.
To be fair, it's kind of what they've given us when they have given us updates of late. It's, we've seen these decks are doing really well, but we're happy where the balance is, and we'll just keep monitoring it, which is fine, because as we have discussed on this podcast week in, week out, we feel the format is, I'd say, unfun in terms of playability, but it's balanced. And that's why it's a tough job for PFP, and I don't envy them. And giving us these comms that we're obviously mentioning would be just great. Like, we would understand like how much of a rock and a hard place this is. You're fixing an already balanced format.
I think it's one of the reasons we obviously pick up on Hyson and Weber playing each week. It's just nice to see that the people in charge are like involved in the format.
Yeah.
Because other than those two are the main ones you see, but like Gavin occasionally posts spoilers for comments, but other than the very, very occasional comments, it's not obvious who's run the format.
Yeah, which is obviously, for those in the know, it's kind of fine because you do generally know who it is, but for the general populace, it's nice to have this reassurance.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a minute YouTube video or a minute article, you know what I mean? Like a very short, all it has to be is just, that's all it has to be. We're not asking for much.
No.
Please, PFP, please. So yeah, I guess my next one is we kind of got a bit lazy with these hot takes, I guess. Is that Terra will just continue to dominate, especially leading into Commander Masters. So it's kind of like a this week and next week kind of thing. Again, because we're unsure on when Commander Masters is illegal. If next week is no Commander Masters, I still think Terra will dominate. And then if it is legal, I also still think Terra will dominate. It just might not be blue-black. It could be blue-red. It could be blue-white for all I care.
Yeah. I think it will be interesting once Commander Masters release comes to Magic Online to see like the development from Terra gaining that Serpent. Because it makes like decks like Mono Blue Terra that we've seen occasionally do really well, and the Blue Red Terra that we're seeing do well now, it gives them a lot more like power, like in comparison to the Blue Black Mag Angler. So it will be interesting to see. I still think it's, unless all the glitters breaks affinity, I think Terra will still be the best deck. But it may not be just this blue-black Lorien Terra that we've gotten used to.
Definitely.
My second one was basically that Skred will become a key tool in the top decks once again. Obviously, we're seeing it now in Jeskai Ephemerate, and the high placement that's putting up week in, week out. The new Blue-Red Terra is another good example of basically a deck that's leveraging the power of Skred, and that's not the whole reason it's red, but a very large portion of that reason is due to Skred being so good. So I imagine more decks will sort of lean into that. Maybe a blue-red Fair return, given that Mono Blue Fair did pretty well this weekend with a placement on the Saturday. I could see a blue-red Fair return, given that they also get access to Skred.
Yeah, forgetting the most important red deck that runs Skred. Is that going to make a return? His Ponds are coming back.
Well, that runs green, so it's probably not playable. We've seen the top 8. It's just blue. If you don't play blue, you're not playable.
So what you're saying is we need Rug Ponza? Is that where we're at?
Yeah, Rug Ponza will make a return.
So my final one, again, because we're unsure on when Commander Masters comes out, is this is the end of Pauper 1.0. That is what I'm claiming. Commander Masters is going to be as big as an impact as, is it Double Masters when Monastery Swift Fear was released?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like Pauper 1.0 was Double Masters where that ended.
Yeah.
Is this not the end of Pauper 2.0? We're now in 3.0.
Whichever way you want to look at it. This is either the end of Pauper 2.0 going to the end, start of Pauper 3.0.
It's a new era of Pauper.
This is 100% a new era of Pauper. These downshifts are huge, and the more subtle, which is the thing that I do like. They're not like, here's a Swift Spear, a card that should never have been a common level.
Yeah, they don't just all go in this deck. Like the Serpent, I guess it's the closest to just he's a terror thing, but yeah, cards like All the Glitters goes in either enchantment decks or artifact decks.
Yeah.
And the Drowning Sorrows, like maybe a strict upgrade to what you've got now, maybe not. Things like Generous Gift as well.
But even like little things, like we've now got a Wrath effect that deals 3. Like, I know it sounds silly, but we've never had that, so that changes certain things. Like what because, like, you know, Elves is now even worse. All those 2-3s
it
are
definitely
dying.
needed to be worse.
You know what I mean? It's just like these little things, you know. But yeah, I think basically going back, it's just there's a lot of new tools that everyone's got to explore in all sorts of different formats. Like, we've only just touched on like a handful of cards, which are great. So that's my hot take. Might not be next week because I haven't actually got a clue when it's out, to be honest. But yeah, Pauper 2.0 or Pauper 3.0 is about to begin.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Obviously, we'll see when Commander Masters release, but like you say, all the cards are very big downshifts, and they're definitely going to have some sort of impact on the format. I imagine a large one, but we'll see.
I could definitely even see them just bolstering already great decks, like bolstering these Terror decks, bolstering Affinity, but in all honesty, bolstering these already decks that are borderline bannable, making them actually bannable is still fine by me. You know what I mean? We might... hot take number 1 might happen because of these cards. But that's it from my hot takes, I guess.
Yeah, that's all it from me.
Yeah, so guys, if you have enjoyed this podcast, please, I'm begging you, like Oliver Twist with his hat out, share this podcast with all your local friends, all local community. Share it with your grandma. I don't really care, honestly. Be really appreciated if you can just obviously spread the word, because we do obviously, I like to think we do great work here. And it's great obviously for you guys to listen to us in the car on your way to work. You know, and showing that love and support obviously helps us, you know,
I think
carry on.
One thing I'd add to that as well is if you're like local communities having a big Pauper event, I'm going to say like 30 plus players, feel free to reach out and give us deck lists and stuff. We're more than happy to cover it.
Yeah. That is one thing obviously definitely mentioned. We reached out to, obviously there was an American 80 player event, which unfortunately we didn't get back to us in time. Obviously we're recording this episode. So
we might cover it next week though.
But exactly. So if there is these sort of big Pauper events that you know about, whatever, happily reach out. We'll happily cover anything Pauper. Like, I am not joking when we say at the start of this episode that we cover everything Pauper. We literally mean it, because we are just Pauper mad. Well, me in particular. But yeah, that is all from us at Casting Comments. And until next time, don't forget to stay hydrated.
See ya.